All right, we are live. Studio C, Channel 511, Common Sense, Ohio, 10/22/25. That's October 22, 2025. Brought to you by Harper Plus Accounting. Our accountant could be yours. Anyway, shut them up and shut them down, guys. The Dems say it's Trump and Trump says it's Dem. See what I did there? The shutdown continues 35 days in, tied with the Clinton era shutdown, apparently. Turns out that King's crap too. Trump's throne, however, is not the toilet. It is a airplane, at least AI style, dropping feces on protesters. No King's protesters. And, lots going on in the Supreme Court. Turns out equal protection is equal protection for all, after all. At least it looks that way. That and lots more to come here at Common Sense, Ohio. So, but first, the fact of the day, I've skipped this last couple weeks because I've just been negligent, I'll call it. But there is some interesting stuff going on. What I'll point out first is, believe it or not, guys, I actually look up the historical fact of the day. I don't just know it. Mm-hmm. And there's two different big websites I go to. One is history.com. And the other is Britannica, the old encyclopedia.com. Mm. So in history.com, seems sort of boring. Didn't find much. So I click over to Britannica, and guess what? Like, this is the day that Kennedy announced the Cuban Missile Crisis to the public. So why is one website make that a significant? I mean, is there something controversial about that? But on this day, in 1962, JFK alerted Americans to the Cuban Missile Crisis, declaring a naval blockade to prevent further missile shipments to Cuba. A naval blockade, of course, the Soviet Union, Khrushchev. Mm. So that's a pretty significant fact. Like, is there something woke here going on that I don't know?
I don't think so. No.
It is close to Halloween.
Yeah.
But more important,
Pretty
Boy Floyd.
Ooh.
Killed in East Liverpool, Ohio on this day, I believe, let's get the date right, 1934. So Floyd was one of the notorious gangsters of the 20s and 30s. And, he was the guy who would rob banks and then destroy people's mortgages. So he was sort of like, he got the human, or he got the Robin Hood. Yeah, the Robin Hood effect from people. But it went on, there was a multi-state manhunt. He was actually captured in Ohio once, escaped, but then they ended up getting him in Ohio, East Liverpool, shot him dead like the dirty dog that he was, I guess. But anyway, Floyd died. I didn't know that.
Mm. Wow. So was he escaping from like a local jail, or do you know the circumstances?
I just know that they chased him down. There was a manhunt for the guy.
Okay.
But his moniker was the Robin Hood of Cookson Hills for his destruction of mortgage papers during bank robberies. Nonetheless, his criminal activities continued through, I guess, Minnesota, Michigan, or Kansas City, Missouri, up in Michigan. All over the Midwest. I had no idea. Oklahoma.
Was he part of the Barrow gang?
I think he was his own. He was his own
solo
guy.
act, like Dillinger was.
Yeah. Now there was a little bit of controversy about his death. That he was merely wounded until he refused to talk to the cops, and then of course the cops, lore would have it, shot him dead when he wouldn't talk and cooperate.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
How dare,
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that's
in that an interesting time where totally pre-social media, but the lore, the stories around him.
Well, yeah, I mean, think of all the movies that spun off the gangster.
Machine Gun Kelly, all those.
They
were really
Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, came out of the Depression, and they sort of were folk heroes.
Well,
in some twisted way.
As I tend to do, I like to draw these bigger sort of connections. And
please do, Steve.
It was an era of pain and suffering in the country. The Depression era.
Dust Bowl. All kinds of nasty stuff.
Terrible stuff. Terrible government policy.
Hitler on the rise.
Yeah, just lots of bad stuff. And then you have this sort of anti-hero emerging, but it's really socialism, right? I mean, it's like the idea of taking mortgages and doing all this stuff, but they were just a criminal.
Yeah, people hated banks.
Yeah, people hated banks, and so there was
they were foreclosing on farms, and
there was a lot of emerged the New Deal era, and I think we're flirting with some of that stuff right now. Some of these socialistic thoughts and policies, and people are attracted to it. Like Mondami. Did you see the debate with Mondami?
It's unbelievable to me that apparently in New York politics, if you're like AOC or Zoran, if you have wide, bright eyes and a nice white smile,
doesn't it remind you of Obama a little bit, right?
Yeah,
like all flash,
it's like
all
people
show.
Are caught up in their charisma and they're attractive young people and all that, and it's like, but do you listen to what they say?
What's lunacy?
It's lunacy.
He's like, right. And all the bus rides are going to be free and all the subway rides are going to be free and everything's going to be free. And the government's going to take all your money, filter it through their immense Leviathan, to quote Thomas Hobbes, and then disperse it as they see fit. So what's going to happen? Like, I was listening to Victor Davis Hanson, who of course is a historical genius.
Oh yeah.
And just a down to earth dude. But he was talking about this and he was talking like back in the Soviet era, then again in Cuba, as Kennedy would have said. The elites didn't really, all of them didn't flee, meaning run away. Some of them stuck around and sort of like cozied in with the dictator, thinking, look, I'll play your game.
Oh yeah.
But I want a little something for me too. Sure. So they cozy in, and that's what creates all the bad stuff with social. It's like some people get it, they get the money. And so like all the wealthy people, they're going to say, look, we know what you're doing here, Zoran, and we'll stick around. But in exchange for sticking around, how about a little something for us?
Right.
And that's where the corruption is planted.
Oh,
the seeds of corruption get planted.
Yeah.
So because it can't work, there's not enough money. As Reagan said, the problem is socialism, you run out of other people's money.
Yeah,
Or, like Margaret Thatcher said that.
The local New York government will run the grocery store.
It's nonsense.
What's he talking about?
Like, when's the last time Zoran Mamdani was in charge of a grocery store?
Well, he's never had a job. I think that came out in the debate.
Well, the one good Cuomo line was, your only job is working for your mommy. Right. Which, I don't know if he said it quite that way, but that is his only job.
I mean, New York City is about to elect a guy who was born in Uganda, who is hanging out with an unindicted 9/11 conspirator, at that at the Muslim temple, and has been saying things like, we need to restructure American society. That's our goal.
Right.
And you're just like, are you kidding me? It wasn't that long ago that they had Rudy Giuliani, restoring civil order and, tamping down violence and even graffiti on the buildings. And now it's come full circle. We're going to elect a communist after Eastern Europe has gone to democracies. And you would think, that people in New York, being an immigrant city, would take note of what the Eastern Europeans had been through for half a century,
right,
and say, no, the last thing we want is socialism and communism.
It almost feels like a high school class president run.
Yeah,
because I'm going to make lunches free for you, and then we're going to be able to all this
free
stuff.
Lunch for everybody.
Yeah, and
it's childish.
It is.
That's a great analogy. It is. Wow. It's so childish.
It's so childish.
It is, and I guess to a certain point he's trying to recognize a pain, maybe, but it's like you're taking it to the nth degree to solve this problem.
The pain is that everything is too expensive.
Yes.
The housing has gone through the roof.
Totally get that.
Inflation is out of control, and it's all because of the same policies that he claims are going to fix it.
Exactly
right. That it's the complete opposite of what he says.
Right.
It's the rules for radicals: create the chaos, right? And then exploit it
and
run on it.
And as Thomas Sowell said, these kind of policies are never judged on their outcome, only their goal.
Yeah.
So, we're going to eradicate, we're going to make housing cheaper by government buying it.
Right.
Right. When's the last time that was a good idea anywhere?
It never has
exactly.
been.
Any city across the country, where has that been good?
Right.
It's
when they've tried to take Section 8 housing and these government, apartment buildings that Great Society built, and they tried to basically give title, like it's a condominium now, and actually tell the families that are in the units, here you go. If you pay, some kind of small mortgage on this, in 10 years, you can own this former federal Section 8.
Yeah, it never works.
And it doesn't work. And it goes to hell in a handbasket.
And look, everybody, I'm sure there's lots of New York listeners.
Cabrini Green, Exhibit A.
Yeah, I'm sure there's lots of New York listeners here to comment. I'm sure all you folks in New York City are about to
We're
vote.
changing votes
after this episode.
Understand how this stuff is enforced. It's enforced at the end of a barrel of a gun.
Yeah.
Ultimately. And you would say, and I mean that sort of metaphorically and literally, because when you don't comply, they will come arrest you.
Oh, sure.
And so your choice is going to be, fortunately, so far, we still have a choice. They'll have a choice to leave to a different state and just get out of there. But I've even heard him talking about, he goes, we're going to incentivize it. Like, what does that mean? We're going to incentivize people to stay. Does that mean you're going to force them to stay? Like, you only the communist countries build a wall to keep their people in.
Right.
It's like only the communist countries do that.
Yeah.
It's never happened in a democracy.
Yeah.
It's never happened in a capitalistic society.
Yep.
Ever.
Yeah.
Like, we build walls to keep people out. They build walls to keep people in.
Yeah. And in New York State, they do have all kinds of ideas and proposals to penalize their snowbirds that pay taxes in Florida, rather than New York State.
Yeah, it's like bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. So anyway, we got lots going on. The shutdown, is that where you want to start, Norm?
Well, I think the shutdown is good fodder for discussion because, it like on top of the shutdown, there was the No Kings protests of this past weekend. And it seems like the people who are most upset about the shutdown are middle-aged to older Americans. They were the primary people at the No Kings protests. There wasn't a lot of young people participating.
And only like 8 million people across the country.
And they were mainly, ex-hippie geezer type people. And their signs were very diffuse as to what they were protesting.
Well, always.
They were dippy, kind of daffy,
you see these, like there's YouTube guys who go out and they interview these protesters and they say, what do you protest? And of course they're only showing the ones they want to show. So I appreciate that. But they're showing, like, they're interviewing these like older, white, middle-aged people.
Yeah.
Like, what are you protesting? They get tongue-tied. They don't even know.
Well, they called them Grand Tifa because they were grandpas and grandmas. So they called them Grand Tifa. And when they would ask, well, it was almost like that Marlon Brando reply in the movie where he goes, I don't know, man, what do you got?
Yeah, what are you rebelling against? What do you got?
What do you got? It's like
look, they're protesting because they hate Trump. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and they're allowed to.
They can protest all they want.
And I'm glad it was safe and nobody got hurt.
Nobody got hurt, but there was a lot of violent, like the media didn't report it. Like, you go to the mainstream media and always says it's remarkable how peaceful it was. Very peaceful.
Right.
But then when you start seeing, like, other people are showing, I saw Megyn Kelly showed a bunch of clips of people talking about killing people.
Oh yeah.
And it was pretty ubiquitous both ways. So it just is, this idea that their side of protest is always right.
Oh yeah.
Out of the mainstream. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying, right, you have every right to go protest, get your permit, walk, carry your signs, do whatever.
Of course.
I don't know. Maybe I'm living in, see, the good news is about Ohio, it's sort of a little bubble. Ohio always is, like, we're always sort of protected here. The housing crashes are never as deep it never goes as far, and the ups maybe don't go as high, but we're always pretty stable here in Ohio.
And I think the protesters are, in my view, a representative of a generation that did protest. Gen X, Gen Y, all the other younger generations, they never had to or did participate in protests. It's that the boomer generation protests, and that's their thing.
And it's an interesting point you're making, because I remember in college there was this.
And to reinforce that point, they're rolling out the same tired, staid phrases like, hey, this is what democracy looks like.
Right.
I'm like,
what are you doing? Like, what's your message?
Right. Yeah.
I heard that during the Vietnam protests. And this is not the first time, like, there's been riots against federal policy. At home, in one of the books I have from my dad's library is the Presidential Commission on riots in America. It came out in 1971 or whatever. And so, like, this isn't the first time. And you can, Lincoln had draft riots in New York City during the Civil War. Like, this country has been protesting and has had, street, confrontations with the police throughout American history.
Sure.
And when people say this is new or this is different, the thing that I don't like is the rhetoric, the violent rhetoric. When I heard people talk about Charlie Kirk, of all people.
Well, that's right. There was a lot
Hitler.
of that. As Hitler.
He's Hitler. I'm glad
he died.
I'm glad
I wish I
Hitler's
would have
dead.
seen his head pop. I heard all sorts of terrible
all
stuff.
this stuff. And the guy
I didn't hear that on the news. I didn't hear that on MSNBC.
And the guy running for attorney general in Virginia saying that the Virginia Speaker of the House, that he wishes he could put 2 bullets through his head and kill his wife. And
it's just
like, what the hell are you talking about, man?
But, we've gotten to a place that's
that's exactly.
This federal judge in Maryland that Chip Roy filed articles of impeachment against, because a couple of days ago, her name is Boardman, federal judge. She came out with this decision based on his gender identity, that this guy thinks he's a woman.
So the case, let's give some background. The case you're talking about
Kavanaugh
is
assassination.
the attempted assassination of Kavanaugh. When I say attempted assassination, I don't think people really understand. This guy went out and intended to kill Kavanaugh.
He came from the West Coast to do this.
And was thwarted in the effort, right? Was caught in the act.
Yeah.
So Kavanaugh did not get shot at, but it was sort of like the second Trump assassination. Yeah. He was going to do this.
Because they caught him outside his house? That was the scenario.
I think outside his house.
And the federal sentencing guidelines and what the federal prosecutors wanted was the standard, you threaten a Supreme Court justice, it's 30 years. And she gave him 8. And she said, part of her decision was mental illness and that his gender identity as a female. And it's like, what the hell does gender identity, like, why is that a mitigating factor?
Well,
is it leading to the end of dysphoria, of a mental state of mental problems?
No, she said mental illness was one thing.
Okay.
But the fact that he has a gender identity issue, it
was almost like she was saying, since you're going to go to a male prison, then I'm going to give you a break. There was something there. I've sort of read something like that into it. And then just because he suffered as somebody with gender dysphoria, or she didn't call it that, but
no, she didn't call that.
Anyway, so there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
You've got this notion, first of all, how this works. In federal court, we have something called the U.S. Sentencing Guidelines. And I think it was 1980-ish. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But the U.S. Sentencing Guidelines used to be mandatory. They used to be that here's the guideline. And the idea, of course, was equality, like all other bad ideas. We're going to make sentencing equal across the board. So we're going to create guidelines.
Yeah.
And we're just going to plug everything in. It'll be like a computer. It'll spit out what the guideline range is, and boom, there you go.
Like the Manson girls that set up an assassination of President Ford, they got 30 years.
Yeah. Well, the guidelines turned out to be a disaster because it didn't give any judicial discretion whatsoever, or very little judicial discretion.
Right. They're guidelines.
But they were mandatory. Judges had to follow them.
Yeah. And not in this
until about 2006-ish, there was a case called U.S. v. Booker that said, look, this is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
The guidelines are for heretofore, the guidelines will be only considerations that the courts can take into account. But we're going to go back to the United States Code, Section 3553, that talks about factors the judges can consider, like who's the person, what's the character and condition of the offender, impact on the victims, need for rehabilitation, all the crap that you would think that sentencing matters.
We throw gender in there.
The point is that I don't see gender identity as a 3553 factor. I'd be arguing it if I were representing somebody.
Well, sure. Especially now with some precedent.
But I think more important here, I think impeachment is the wrong move. The Court of Appeals is the right move. Look, judges make mistakes all the time. Judges sentence. And so look, I'll give you the pros and cons. To this judge's credit, she at least pronounced on the record the basis for her sentence.
Okay. Yeah.
That means that the government can go appeal and say, look what the judge did.
Mm-hmm.
The judge's sentencing considerations do not fit within the 3553 factors or any other relevant consideration. And therefore it needs to be reversed and remanded for a new sentencing hearing with proper instructions on how to apply and what to apply as far as factors, and then spit it out and come back. This happened locally with a judge in our district here in Ohio, and it went back and forth up and down the ladder a couple times.
I got you, but I think the legislature, also the Congress, they definitely have a role to play. So like Tom Cotton has introduced legislation that would remove specifically gender identity as a factor during sentencing.
But that's not impeachment.
But so
Congress can do that.
She has a poor record on other matters. I don't want to go into it.
No, I got you. But there's more to it here.
I disagree.
She has a series of decisions. I disagree with removing gender dysphoria as a factor for sentencing. I think judges.
Well, they didn't say mental illness, which is what
I understand.
Gender
identity,
which is separate from mental illness.
I think what he's trying to say, you shouldn't deem this a plus in a mitigating factor.
Well, let's take a straight up rape.
Because there's an equal protection problem.
So if a female commits rape on either a girl or a boy victim, okay, should her gender determine the sentence versus a male who commits rape?
The question is,
I would say no.
Here's the question. This will fantail
if all other factors
with the voting gerrymandering argument too. Here's what's going on. Should we deem it a mitigating factor, a plus, if you will, for a defendant if they happen to be trans? And you would ask, well, why? I would think a judge should be, if you're going to, then the judge should be able to break down what part of being trans is mitigating in that particular case. I can't think of a scenario off the top of my head, but there may be one. But what this judge is sort of saying is it's just mitigating because this person's trans, so they deserve a break.
Right.
And I think that's what everybody's railing against on the other side. That's what the government is railing against. Just because you're trans doesn't mean you get a lesser sentence. That violates equal protection.
Well, exactly, because it could be that the person was Puerto Rican. Well, I'm going to give you a break because you're Puerto Rican.
Right. And
it's the same thing if that's the lane she's traveling.
Should this individual get a lesser sentence than the individual who tried to assassinate Trump just because this individual's trans? Similar conduct? I don't know. The answer, I think, is clearly no. I don't see a rational connection.
Yeah.
Unless she's trying to open the door of okay, there is mental problems here.
Well, that's different.
Well, she's not going to say that.
She's not saying that.
No,
liberals will never say.
Or did she just step it to that last
she is
step?
a Biden liberal appointee.
So.
I would be arguing that forever. I'd be like, look, this individual's got mental health problems. This individual's got whatever you need to argue to lessen the sentence.
I'm the dickhead who said that people who can't tell whether they're a male or female should not be able to own a firearm. I'm the guy who said that on this show. So I do think it's a mental illness, but that's sure as hell not what this judge said.
No, that's not what this judge is saying. Okay. And, ultimately, I think, again, back to my point, I think impeachment is the wrong direction for this because I do not think that we need to get into the business of impeaching judges who issue decisions that we don't like. This judge did it wrong, but did it right. She did it right, but wrong. Here's what she did wrong. The argument is, of course, that she considered the wrong factors.
Yeah.
Fair. But she did it right in the sense that she put it on the record. So now there's a redress for that in the Court of Appeals.
Well, but she also did that, Steve, no doubt, right? She's sending a social message out to the world that, gender identity, she wants it to be a factor.
So now the Court of Appeals can say it's not. Or it is, or whatever. The circuit court that's their job to do that. It's not impeachment to me is misconduct.
You're forcing me to pick up Chip Roy's arguments
here.
Well,
let's do it.
And it's more than just this case. The same judge also issued a nationwide
injunction
against Trump orders, like, for example, on birthright citizenship.
Yep.
So she took it upon herself as an individual district court.
Well, again,
judge.
There was no reason when she did that she wasn't permitted to. We've talked about this too, and I think the Supreme Court's going to stop it, and I think they did sort of in their order.
Well, there's a substantial amount of legal precedent that says individual district court judges do not get to make nationwide.
I think that's going to. I think that practice is going to be dead on the vine.
But I mean, that's been going on for decades.
Yeah, and I think that's going to die on the vine. I think most people would agree with that. But look, I mean,
they did like 12 against Obama. They've done like 90 against Trump.
Well, the lawfare has emerged as the means of war.
So I think impeaching her, or at least having an impeachment trial about her decisions, that is part of what Congress is allowed to do.
I'm not saying they're not.
You want the judges to have power. Well, so does the Congress.
I'm not saying they're not. As my dad used to say, he said a federal judge has more power than the Holy Ghost himself.
And
it's a lifetime appointment.
Yeah.
And there's not much oversight other than the courts of appeals. So look, I mean, I'm not saying that they can't file impeachment. I just don't like the practice. Look, this judge hasn't done anything. Let me explain what might change my mind.
Okay.
If there is something nefarious the judge has done, some crime the judge has committed, some act the judge has committed, if the judge were actually deciding this stuff, but then concealing her basis for decisions, like if it emerged that some law clerk for this judge says, look, here's my notes in this meeting with the judge where she said, I'm going to help this guy because he's trans, but then has a different reason on like that's different to me. But writing your decision out, writing your reasoning out and being foolish about it is, to me, not impeachable. That is reversible, but not impeachable.
Okay. Okay. We can disagree.
Yeah.
I think it is impeachable. I think if you're so ridiculous, and I think this is totally ridiculous, assassinating a Supreme Court justice because the would-be assassin expressed to the investigators why he wanted to assassinate Kavanaugh, and it was about abortion rights decisions that were forthcoming from the Supreme Court, and it was about gay marriage decisions forthcoming from the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So he wanted to have an effect. You talk about having an effect on jurisprudence. Well, when you start killing Supreme Court justices, Steve, I would just say, you've gone over a certain line, and I think the rest of the judiciary needs to be pretty damned harsh on people who have been found guilty in their sentencing of would-be assassins for that very reason. Because this guy was trying to change the outcome of Supreme Court decisions.
Look, it's a horrendous crime.
Killing somebody.
It's a horrendous crime. I agree that more time is warranted.
So this is a pretty serious situation.
It's a horrendous crime.
Okay, man. Yeah. So, I respect what you said, though, about her integrity intellectually, about putting her reasoning into,
she told us what she's doing.
That's fine. That's fine. But that doesn't. I mean, that would be like Hitler explaining, what he's doing in some crazy policy.
Well, look, no, the difference with Hitler is there was no oversight over Hitler.
Exactly right.
But there is here.
Right.
So if a judge issues a decision based on faulty legal reasoning, the next logical step is the courts of appeal look at it and say, sorry, judge, that's foolish.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Try again.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And that happens all the time. I don't want to say happens all, but it happens in federal court. So the case I'm talking about in Ohio was a child pornography case where we just happened to have a federal judge who was, frankly, very rigid on crime. Like it was a staunch, old school Republican, tough on crime guidelines guy. And but in these child porns, he looked at because look, child pornography is this weird anomaly where you get these like dudes in their basement who just got whatever mental health, and they're looking at it, and our federal judge says, look, this guy does not deserve to go to prison for 15 years for that. I don't see it.
Yeah.
You can disagree, and I'm not taking a position on child pornography. I'm not taking a position that child pornography is good.
I understand.
But the sentencing gets crazy out of hand very fast.
Yeah.
For all sorts of reasons that we can talk about.
Yeah.
But the judge says, look, I'm not doing it. I'm not following the guidelines. Goes up to the Sixth Circuit. Sixth Circuit sent it back. Went up to the Sixth Circuit again after the judge resentenced, sent it back. I mean, this happened 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And, eventually it washed out one way or another. But the idea is that there is a place to oversee what this judge is doing. I hope and I pray that the Court of Appeals looks at it and says, this is not a factor you can consider as mitigating just because.
Right.
I don't think it is.
Right.
And I think it'll be based on, this will be a nice transition for us. I think it'll be based on equal protection. I think what I would say is, look, you can't say that one group of people gets this kind of protection when another doesn't.
Exactly.
So you're a white heterosexual male, Norm. If you did this and you committed the same crime, should you go to prison for 8 years? Or would this judge say, because you're a white heterosexual male, you're going to prison for 20?
Wait a minute. I'm confused about my gender. Okay, then you get 8 years.
And I would posit the following.
What?
If you're trying to assassinate a Supreme Court justice or a president or anybody for that matter, you've got a mental health problem anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So that mitigation should be baked into the cake.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing that because you're sane.
One.
Right.
That's ingredient one.
Right. That's the flour.
Right.
Yeah.
The only thing, so now we're really getting in the weeds, but I have felt and advocated for a long time that I don't think mental health should be a reason to not find somebody guilty. I think it should be like an incarceration issue. Somebody who has attempted to assassinate a president, Supreme Court justice, the mayor of a city, a governor, a police officer, fireman, whatever it is, public servant, if they have a mental health issue, I think they should still be found guilty, still incarcerated. It just should be a different facility. It should be a hospital.
Well,
it should not be a prison.
The problem with that slope is it gets really slippery.
Yes, it does.
I have pondered this for 30 years in my legal practice. Even before I became a lawyer, I was like always, because
I understand.
Normal, rational people don't commit these kind of crimes.
That's right.
Like I would start with that premise.
Right.
You know, you might say normal, rational, like everybody at some point, or not everybody, but lots of kids at some point go to the drugstore with their mom and they steal a candy and then they get the proverbial like embarrassing moment where you have to go back and give it back. That happened to me.
Right.
I was too young to even know.
Well, if you have good parents.
And you know,
that's what they do.
I came out and my mom said, "Where'd you get that?" And I was like, "I got it in there."
Yeah.
I just took it from it was like a pack of certs or something. I don't know, a piece of
it's
gum.
like trick or treat, Mom.
Right. I just took it. And she's like, and I remember with terror, sheer terror, going back in and having to give it back to the lady behind the counter. And that's all I remember about it.
Yeah.
But you remember it.
I never stole anything again.
It's an object lesson.
Right.
But I don't think I was crazy. But I have represented lots of people who are. I don't think people who have a penchant to go rape kids have normal mental health.
No,
I don't think people have a penchant to go commit murders or psychopaths, for instance.
Yeah.
Can you blame a psychopath who doesn't feel anything and doesn't mind killing or is born with this sort of thing that they have to kill? Like the system has to deal with that, and it can't deal with it by giving people a break because
like a Jeffrey Dahmer.
It would be
He's eating
chaos.
Body parts.
Nobody
out of
would
his
say
fridge.
that guy is sane.
That's right.
Nobody.
That's right.
So he gets punished like everybody else.
Right.
Now, where the slope ends, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and Dahmer should go to prison. He should go to the same. So I don't know
where he got killed, by the way.
Where he died. Right. So there was a justice. It has its own vigilante justice in the world.
But you know, cosmic justice.
Yeah. A criminal justice is what that was.
Yeah.
In its own way. But so look, I don't necessarily agree. And I don't know where the curves cross. Maybe our system in the West the curves have decided to cross with the definition of insanity, where you don't know right from wrong. You don't appreciate the nature and consequences of your action. If you're truly insane, legally insane, then you get a pass. But look, crazy people commit crimes. Otherwise they wouldn't
But then what?
They wouldn't commit
that's
crimes.
The thing. That's what's always bothered me.
Well, then they go to there's a process.
Yeah, there should be a process.
Like Hinckley was declared insane. He was.
Yeah.
He was insane.
Yeah.
There's lots of people
trying to impress Jodie Foster.
Right. This is we're talking about John Hinckley Jr.
Yeah.
But it's this guy who killed Kirk. If it is him, I get there's lots of controversy about that. Maybe
come on.
Maybe the Israelis did it. Maybe the Jewish power structure in the country did it. Maybe it wouldn't surprise me if other people knew or partly involved in the planning. That may come out. But at any rate, assuming he did that, he's crazy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that he didn't know right from wrong. It doesn't mean that he didn't appreciate the nature and consequences of his action when he pulled that trigger.
Right.
And it certainly doesn't mean that there's not a place for him called prison. There is.
Yeah.
It's going to be general population prison where life is going to be hard, and it's supposed to be hard.
Isn't it interesting?
And I'm not an advocate for prison.
Or is it just coincidence that he was involved in a trans relationship
with a furry or whatever, right?
Yeah.
A trans furry.
I mean, there is something deeply mentally ill about that entire
If a judge looked at that and said, look, sorry, we know you killed Charlie Kirk, but, you've got a trans relationship and maybe you're dancing on trans yourself, or maybe you're gay, or maybe whatever, whatever tag you want to put on that person. So we're just going to deem it a break. And we would have given you 20, but now it's 8.
Yeah.
I got a problem with that, I think.
Totally.
And look, here's the craziness of my job. I would take that argument into a courtroom and argue it.
Well, I understand. Sure.
But I don't expect
that is so. Steve, I'll stick up for defense attorneys here. That is how we make sure that the system is fair. Is you want the most vigorous, you want the most expert, you want the most competent defense attorneys defending the worst sorts of people, so that if and when they're convicted, the rest of us in society could say, hey man, that guy had Steve Palmer, or F. Lee Bailey, or, whoever is an excellent lawyer. And then you have some satisfaction that was most likely a fair outcome because that person had an incredible advocate for them, so that's how the rest of us have confidence in our system.
But here, for the same thing, we're blaming the judge. And that's the
Yeah, the judge can let the whole thing down.
Well, no, the defense lawyers clearly argued this, and they knew they had a soft.
I would say Judge Ito screwed up the OJ trial. Terrible.
That was good.
Terrible.
That's a whole nother debate.
I mean, that's a
different show.
But I mean, that's where a judge can completely screw up not only the jury selection, but the venue, the evidence. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit and all that.
I heard Ben Shapiro the other day. I don't remember when it was, but he was talking about the jury system and he was sort of advocating that the adversarial system was not as good as maybe a committee type system, the European tribunal crap. And I couldn't disagree more with him on that because for the reasons you're talking about, because look, these people all have the inherent flaw of humanity.
Yeah.
All the judges, men, women,
that's
trans,
right.
gay,
Right.
whatever.
They can get jaded up there.
That's right.
And just you look guilty.
And they think they know best.
That's right.
I've been in front of many of those wearing a black robe who, once they cloak it, they become king.
They are a god in that. Everybody stands up. They walk.
Walk
in the damn room, and everybody stands up. Like,
I know.
Who are you? You're just a
or in
judge.
Lots of judges like, oh no, sit down. Yeah, and it's like we don't really do. Look.
And in England, everybody wears a wig.
They wear the wig and they do all this stuff.
But take on a whole personality.
Yeah.
When the jury gets it wrong, meaning they acquit somebody who is guilty, or they convict somebody who is innocent, which is the worst type of injustice of all time.
That's terrible.
We have to accept it, just what it is, because the alternative is the corruptness that everybody's railing against.
Yeah, but if you have a fresh law student graduate defending, a guy accused of murder, he's not going to get a fair trial. You've got to have competent representation.
And that means pushing the envelope and pushing the boundaries. I make arguments all the time.
That's why I have no problem with it. Like if you were in that sentencing situation and you wanted to push that theory, I have no problem with that.
Oh, I'd be all over that. I'd have psychologists. I'd go find the best trans psychologist there is, and I'd be running with it.
I get it. I'd
be running with it. And I'd go home and say, this is insanity.
And if I was a prosecutor, I'd be calling you out. And, and that's how the system should work. It's an adversarial system.
Right.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about voting, Steve, and I thought I'd throw this out there. The Supreme Court is in the midst of probably writing up. They heard the arguments on the Voting Rights Act vis-a-vis how we do redistricting. And a lot of, of course, that's based on the census. And one of the factors that the Voting Rights Act put in how we do gerrymandering and how we do, congressional districts is that the racial makeup of the population can be a legitimate factor in how you maybe, do these very strained boundaries where you do like an arc around the inner city to make sure that the other part that you're leaving represents African Americans or Hispanic Americans or Cuban Americans or some sort of population racially that you feel as a redistricting board for that state, you feel needs to be protected under the Voting Rights Act. And the state of Louisiana has taken it to the Supreme Court to say, it's been 60 years or whatever since, President Johnson signed that. And it's time to move on from race-based considerations. If we're not going to do that in college scholarships and admissions, like the Harvard-Yale case, and if we're not going to do that straight up in the military, let's say when deciding who's going to be a pilot and who's going to be an artillery person, then we shouldn't be doing it in the voting area.
Well, that's right. Should we create districts just to have more black voters or a black majority somewhere? And that's really the issue. Is that an equal protection? And I think Clarence Thomas,
put all the whites over here. So you can have an all black district or, and separate them and do these strained districts that don't make geographical sense.
Oh, and you can give another example of that too, of how Columbus has been developing up in regards to its groups of people. I mean, there is a whole section in the Northland area of Somalian. So are we going to carve out that area
because they're a minority? Right.
Because they're a minority and they have a Somalian representative that's running for office. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know.
That's your guy.
I don't know.
And that doesn't really, that's not a melting pot attitude.
Not at all.
Because I don't know the answer. I don't know.
Because to me, it's un-American.
Because it has developed that way.
Gerrymandering's been around since the beginning of time, right?
So
sure.
It used to be religious-based, like largely. Sure. Like the Calvinists are over here and the Methodists and the Catholics and the Jews. And so we're going to, make sure those bad people.
Gerrymandering based upon a classification of race, gender, religion, national origin, something like that. That's really what's at play here.
That's right.
And is that a violation of the Equal Protection Clause, or is that constitutional? I mean, that's what they're arguing about.
That's what they're arguing.
And each side is going to say, no, we want groups with our voters.
Right.
And, but it just, and this is something that's going to cut both ways eventually. I mean, this is
a kind of poison that when you start going down this road, I don't think it ends in a good place. And this has led to the balkanization of America, in my opinion. All of these well-intentioned civil rights fixes, like we're going to force people from this neighborhood to get on a school bus and go way the hell to the other side of Baltimore or Boston to another neighborhood. And then we're going to take those kids and make them do an hour ride to the east side, all of this. And you're talking about children on a bus for an hour in a totally unfamiliar neighborhood.
It was an abject failure too, right? I mean, everybody just left the cities.
The black parents hated it as much as the white parents,
and the kids end up being pawns. And the kids
well, Kamala remembers being that girl waiting on. That's what you're really playing her violin, Norm. I think that's what's going on.
And let me throw this at you guys. So I was pondering this. Now this is kind of a subset argument, but our voting laws really are the product of America's agrarian phase, right? We were primarily an agrarian country where most jobs were not in cities. They were in the country and they were on farms, plantations, all kinds of things like that. And so we came up with this voting system, one person, one vote. Eventually women are added, former slaves are added, people of any to now where I think it's very fair and it's very open. The thing that I don't like about our voting system is they talk about taxation without representation. And let's just take, and I don't know about Brett, if you have a real estate, let's say in Columbus, but Steve and I do. And yet we live in other municipalities or other political.
I own property in West Central Ohio.
Okay.
I don't get a vote.
And you don't live there.
I don't live there.
So I think, and I'll just throw this out there, I think Ohio should have a constitutional amendment that if you personally, not through a corporation, but if you personally own real estate in a political subdivision, that you should be able to vote on local issues. I'm not talking president or governor or anything like that, but township trustee, city council, and tax referendums. Because I have an investment in Columbus. I don't live in Columbus. And yet this city is antithetical to almost everything that I would want for public policy. And I have no say in it. And it just feels wrong.
No,
it feels like it would drive me. Eventually, I'll get so pissed off, I'll sell my land in Columbus and leave.
Yeah, well, that's it. So I was just going to say the same thing. Like I own this building right here in the city of Columbus, and I note there's more trash on the streets.
Yeah,
there's more homelessness on the streets.
Sure.
I have a guy
right out there.
There's a guy that sort of breaks in to my office suite, and he stole somebody's book bag and cell phone and some other stuff. It's just and 5-6 years ago it didn't happen.
Yeah. It's getting really bad.
Yeah, it's getting bad. Now, I don't live in Columbus. I don't have a vote here of what happens.
Yeah.
So my solution is your solution. Well, just sell the place.
Yeah. Bail out.
And who's going to own it?
And then it just gets worse.
That's right.
Once people quit caring about the community because they don't have They don't have a voice.
This is what causes the city squalor. Right.
Do you I don't even know of a city council person that would listen to me in the city of Columbus.
I could see. Let's play the other side of this. So let's, because I'm thinking pros and cons, because I like your idea. Though,
and I'm not sure that giving us voting rights is the solution either.
Because you could have corporations that just buy property after property after property after property.
And I'm not giving them a vote.
Gotcha. Oh,
personally.
Okay, gotcha.
Have to vote
personally. So no corporation.
And it has
vote.
to be substantial.
Gotcha.
I can't create 1 inch by 1 inch parcels.
Sure. Okay.
And then go bring in 1,000 Republican voters that each owed it.
Because I could see the incentive. Okay, if you're going to vote, you need to live here. You need to be part of the community.
Or have a stake.
I see
that.
And
I would say having an office building
is a stake,
like I have and Steve has.
Yes,
we both have an office building in Columbus.
I own it with a corporation.
Say again?
This is an LLC.
Okay. But if it's wholly owned, it's not.
But if I had a partner, I mean, it's hard to chop it up.
If it's wholly owned, I would give that one owner a vote.
What if I had a partner, though? I mean, how's that any different? If my law partner and I decided we're going to buy a building together,
right?
How does that really change the equation?
Well, we could hash that out. I don't know. I don't have a.
I guess the point is, it's difficult.
It's an idea, though. Yeah.
But you should have you have a stake in what Columbus City Council and Franklin County.
And when they raise my taxes, I get to challenge it. I mean, I have this school hearing, this school district hearing, because they raise I always lose.
Come on, yeah.
And here's how it works.
Do you know if anybody who's won?
To win, you have to go pay money. You have to hire somebody who's going to do this evaluation and all this other nonsense, and then you can win.
I know of no one that has
But
won.
me I had the last hearing, I won the first one. And they're like, what's your evidence for what the building's worth? I said, I just bought it.
Oh, okay. That's pretty strong.
And here's what I paid. And they're like, well, what's your evidence that it's worth that?
The market?
The market.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
Right.
Well, and I said, listen, I was in competition to buy this, too. There were other people making offers. I won.
Yeah. I won, so I lost.
Right. So now you want to raise, now you're saying it's worth twice what I paid. I don't agree.
Yeah.
Well, the last time around, they raised it. And they said, what's your evidence for the value of your building? I said, I just had an offer to buy it for somebody who wanted to buy it. And they said it was this. Well, how do you know it's worth that? I said, because that's the offer I got. That's the market. They don't care.
It's got to be one or the other. It's what the market is bearing or what the valuation is by the county.
Yeah, what they say.
It's got to be one or the other. It can't be what's your opinion? What's your opinion? That's a ridiculous throwback question.
With all due respect, I know what my building is worth.
Yeah, right? It's either one or the other, and usually they go with the county valuation.
I should have said, and I'm going to pay extra for what? Like, what are you going to do with my dollars?
Right.
Well, what
are you, sir, going to do with the extra?
I'll throw it back at you.
Because this is like $5,000-$6,000 a year difference.
Wow, that's a big difference.
So, fellows, what got me thinking about this is in certain jurisdictions in this country now, they are permitting for local elections and local issues, like school tax, issues. They are allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections, like in New York City, in LA, in San Francisco. They are allowing people who are not even Americans are being able to vote.
Yeah, that's lunacy.
They're being able to vote in local elections. So I'm saying, well, why, if I own property in Anaheim, California, but I live in, I don't know, up the road in Hesperia, California, but yet I've got, a city council and I've got all these other issues in Anaheim and I own a house there and it's a rental house or whatever. Why shouldn't I be able to vote?
Yeah, it's that slippery slope.
But a non-citizen can vote?
Well, that's stupid.
But I can't vote.
That's just foolish.
That's crazy.
That's foolish. Somebody who doesn't have any stake in the outcome. I mean, it's like they're not. Right. That's foolish.
Yeah, and they're outvoting my interest because they're voting in,
of course,
largesse.
And how can that mentality? It doesn't even make sense. I mean, talk about someone that can be totally influenced by a bribe. Hey, vote this way, and the highest bidder wins.
Right.
Because they have no stake in it. The only stake in that situation is making the most money from the person that's going to buy my vote.
Well, think of it. People that are going to vote for Mamdani for mayor of New York City, many of those people are non-citizens, and they have been permitted to vote by changes in the law in New York State and in the boroughs of New York City. So
Yeah,
You know, I'm like, hold on. Well, what if I owned an apartment building there?
Yeah.
But I lived in whatever, Connecticut. Why shouldn't I be able to vote?
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought I'd throw that out.
Yeah. Food for thought.
So the shutdown, we sort of covered the shutdown, but we sort of didn't. So we're on day 35 of this shutdown. And it seems to me, guys, like nobody, I want to say nobody cares, because I'm sure this is impacting people.
The pain hasn't gotten.
Nobody cares unless they're in front of a reporter to name call back and forth.
Yeah,
so that seems to be the place that they care.
Yeah, the politicians. It's Trump shutdown, or it's Schumer's shutdown, or it's the Dem shutdown, or it's the Republican shutdown. It's like I think we're all just sick of this nonsense.
Well, have you heard Senator Fetterman?
I have heard Fetterman. Fetterman's turned out to be the most rational guy in Congress.
He's incredible. He basically says, "Well, hey, Chucky, you were totally." Against
the government should never ever be shut down. I think that's like a quote from Schumer from years ago.
Right. And you're against where they can call an emergency vote and then it's not 60-40, but it's a 50-50 vote. Like you're against that, except when it's an issue that you care about.
Well, that's right. And this was Mitch McConnell's famous, I told you so. Be careful what you ask for.
Right.
We'll
appoint Supreme Court justices during recess, or federal judges, not Supreme Court justices.
But the point, I guess the point of I just have a fundamental problem with shutting down the government for stuff like this because it's political in nature. I'm not suggesting the government spending is good by any measure, but if we're going to shut down the government, I would at least like to make sure Congress doesn't get paid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like to see a balanced budget amendment like we have in Ohio. Ohio is not allowed to have a deficit, do deficit spending.
Yeah. If we're going to shut down the government, maybe have it defined why and how and what needs to happen to reopen it.
Unless there's a declared war and unless some economist panel like the Fed declares that we're in a depression.
Yeah.
Maybe war and depression, we could deficit spend. But other than those two conditions being met, we should have a balanced budget.
And you brought up before the show that Steve was not part of that show that we talked about arbitration.
Yeah.
Bring an arbitrator in there. I don't know how that would work or how do you appoint such a beast.
But some kind of system.
But hold feet accountable, hold your feet to the fire accountability here. They get the job done. This is why you were voted in. Yeah. This is Congress's job is to do this.
And you're not doing
now. Basically, that's your mandate.
Like now, what has confused the American public right now is both sides are arguing about whether or not the Democrats are pushing for health care under Medicaid for illegal immigrants. And the Democrats are saying, we are absolutely not in favor of that. And the Republicans are saying, well, when illegals go to the hospital and don't pay their bill, guess who covers it? Medicaid. And so what would be good for arbitration is a finder of fact.
Right.
Like, let's have a trial on
how does this really work?
Who's bullshit?
Because we kick this around and I read as much as I could about it. It's not all that clear exactly what's going on with this, but the bottom line is there are people who are not citizens that get health care. And I don't know if any of these two provisions that they're fighting over is the responsible provision for that, but it's happening.
Yeah.
So I think the big, beautiful bill said no mas to that.
That's right.
And now the Dems want to roll back. Basically, they lost the big, beautiful bill argument.
That's right.
And now they're using the shutdown to roll back that provision. Look, and that pisses me off.
It does.
It's like, that's not a reason. I don't like that the Congress does nothing except pass one big bill once a year or something, or once every 4 years. But
none of them read.
And none of them read.
Right.
But look, you lost the debate on the floor. It's voted. It's law.
Yeah.
Get the votes and change it if you don't like it.
Yeah. Right.
But don't shut down the government to get what you want. That seems, if it's as simple as that, which it seems like it might be.
Well, that's just what Fetterman's saying. It's a clean CR.
So a clean CR is
just a continuation of the existing funding at all the same levels for the next few weeks till the middle of November.
And while this is going, then you can start arguing the minutia.
Argue the minutia, but let the people get paid.
Yeah.
Now, look, Trump's solution was we'll just use this as an opportunity to lay off all the non-essential government employees, which, and people were laughing about it, but Biden brought in how many IRS people? Like 1,500 or 5,000 or something like that. And Trump just got rid of them.
Yeah.
So it's like, come on. It hadn't been, you can't have it both ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like you can't just say we never trim the fat. It only gets bigger.
And I find it very hypocritical that the Democrats all of a sudden, after January 6th and talking about how sacred law enforcement is, they seem to be so worried about federal employees and the longevity of their careers, but all of a sudden they want to kill all the ICE agents. Like it's a free fire zone. You could put out a contract on the ICE management, and you can ram trucks into them. You can fire.
And this is the other case that's sort of matriculating up to the Ninth Circuit, and they're arguing about whether Trump can send the federal, or he can nationalize the National Guard.
Sure.
It was at Portland,
and
sure.
And Chicago.
But this is the Ninth Circuit. This case was Portland, though.
Yeah.
But
they're being held back behind a fence in Chicago.
Yeah.
And not being allowed to patrol.
So the issue is this. Speaking of that, like Trump is saying,
which is not ICE, but it's National Guard. But go ahead.
Well, what he's saying is we need the National Guard to protect ICE, to protect the federal facilities,
because they're federal
they're federal employees and they're being targeted and whatever it is.
And locals won't help.
And as an ancillary effect of that, we're going to have some law and order in Portland for once.
Yeah,
I think the Ninth Circuit's going to rule in Trump's favor on this.
I do too.
Sure. And I think if the ostensible purpose, is that the right word? Ostensive purpose is to protect federal assets. I think he can do it, and I think it's been done historically.
It has,
and even beyond that, in the case of Brown.
We have radio traffic from the police in Chicago telling their officers not to assist ICE officers who are under fire, who are being shot at, who had trucks, traffic trying to run them over, and they called for local backup. And they have dispatcher radio where they said, do not lend assistance to federal officers who are under physical jeopardy. So if locals aren't going to come in and protect the ICE personnel, the National Guard's the only other tool. What other tool does Trump have to protect ICE officers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. What I am really bothered about is the rhetoric and how people are talking very violently these days about political things. And and this is part of it. I think when you have imbalanced people that keep hearing that somebody's Hitler, and Trump got shot in the head, Kirk got assassinated. And the governor there in Pennsylvania, the mansion was half burned down.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all coming from this rhetoric. I think imbalanced people, if they think that they're going to take out a Hitler or a Mussolini,
it's an invitation for violence. It's
justification
permission,
for a weak person.
It's a permission slip to say, look, what else are you going to do with Hitler?
That's right.
This guy's Hitler. Everybody knows what Hitler means in modern terms.
That's right.
The most evil person that ever walked on the planet Earth, who was going to take over the planet and kill everybody.
Yeah.
He's the most evil person. There's
the costliest war.
There's all sorts of philosophical debates about if you could go back in time, would you kill Hitler as a baby? It's there's that's Hitler. So the idea is kill him.
Yeah.
You're Hitler, kill him.
Yeah. And then you're some kind of hero.
And you're some kind of anti-hero for trying. And then, or you get a pass because you try to kill Kavanaugh.
Like this Mangione guy, taking out the healthcare executive.
Cold-blooded effing murder.
Yeah.
It is. And I on another show, I got criticized for my take on this. I'm like, look, I'm a criminal defense lawyer and I could represent Mangione, but that's cold-blooded murder.
Yeah.
It is without mitigation, justification, or excuse.
Yeah.
There is no purpose for that murder. None that is valid in a courtroom.
Yeah.
Now, there's always a purpose for murder. There's always a motive.
And yet
the motive is reprehensible.
There's a social media cheerleading section,
of course,
for Mangione.
Even Bill Burr is out there screaming about it. These people, this is gross.
It's gross. It's crazy.
This is gross.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is saying it's okay to murder people that you disagree with.
Yeah. That's where we're going.
Because these people's politics, or what these people do for a living, is so dangerous and so bad that we should just be able to kill them. And and not only that, let me take up the cause of the murderer for a second. It's not fair to the murderers. It's not fair to Mangione, because he's been indoctrinated with this nonsense, and now his life is over. It's like his life also.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not suggesting that he didn't do wrong. He did,
Yeah.
but to the extent he was indoctrinated, encouraged, or
kind of pushed to that
and egged on, or the media and the messaging pushed him to that place. You ruined now 2 lives.
And think of it,
and all the aftershocks that go with it.
This guy that killed Kirk, the guy who the guy who shot Trump in the head, and this Mangione, they're all pretty young men
who have been
indoctrinated. They're like in their 20s.
Indoctrinated with whatever philosophy that encourages that kind of violent behavior and condones it on some sick, gross level. And you've done those people no favors. They've done the world no favors. You've made them evil people. And now you've killed 2 people.
So, Steve, I want to roll this out, if you don't mind me going to a local story here. But this is an intriguing settlement that Columbus just did with the father of a child. This father had custody of this child. And what they're saying to me doesn't make sense. They're saying 2 Columbus police officers who were new on the job, so inexperienced, they somehow got a hold of motions filed by the mother. So the father had custody. This is in domestic relations court. Her attorney files a motion that she should get some sort of custody, either shared or full custody. But the father, in the meantime, he had legal custody.
And the police acted on the motion, not the order.
Not the order. Now, how would policemen ever get a motion? Like, you wouldn't even imagine.
Mom would give it to him.
Okay. As an attorney, you walk in the police district and
mom calls the cops.
Okay.
That guy's kidnapped Mike. I don't know these to be the facts, guys.
Okay.
But let me just tell you a scenario.
Yeah,
Mom
tell me
calls
how
the
this
cops.
could happen.
Dad's got the kids. He won't give them back.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Police go out. Sorry, it's a domestic relations matter. We can't do anything about it unless you have some sort of order or something. We can't do anything about it. Well, here's the order. Here's it. And they hand a motion to the cops, and the cops misinterpret it.
So you don't think they got it down at the station?
No.
Mom probably said, "Hey, here's something from the court," but it's what she filed.
Yeah.
It's not a judge's.
That's my guess.
Wow.
It's only a guess, folks. Fact check me, please.
Well, now that's starting to make sense.
So the cops are negligent.
So then she took off for 7 months and is said to have abused the child. We don't know what that means. Maybe he didn't get 3 meals a day, or it didn't get a shower every day or whatever. But the child was said to have been abused, and she took off. She went on the run for 7 months until they could get the child back to the father. So they gave the father $1 million.
I mean,
and I'm just wondering, like, how in the hell?
It's a big number.
How in the hell does that happen? Right?
Just,
but your scenario, that makes sense.
A mistake. I don't think there was anything intentional there. Just a mistake.
Yeah.
So in the basket on the sergeant's desk, I'm thinking of, like Hill Street Blues or something. Like, there's not a basket. Is there a basket of orders that judges hand down, like domestic relations or whatever, or a habeas?
Stay away orders, maybe. So sometimes stay away, like the police may be not in a basket, but online they could say there's a civil protection order or something like that. But as far as this stuff goes, no chance. I mean, it's just
okay. They wouldn't go in online and go, "Oh, hey, let's go enforce. Let's drive down the road and go get this kid."
No. Mom called. Somebody called and said, "Dad's kidnapping the kid. Here's this stuff." Could even been forged paper. Who knows? But but then the police didn't do whatever due diligence they should have done, apparently. To ensure that they're taking the right action
based on the reward or award the guy was given. Yeah.
And $1 million sounds like a lot, but if you go through a trial and legal fees and all that, it's not that much anymore.
And 7 months, you don't know where your kid is.
Yeah, it's bad.
That's a lot of stress.
All right, guys, good and bad.
Yeah, good and bad. So good. On Jon Stewart's show. Now, Jon, legendary for his liberal commentary and his disdain for Trump. But I like Jon Stewart, kind of like I like Bill Maher, because they have flashes of reasonableness every now and then. And Jon said on his show, where Senator Sanders was his guest, that federal largesse, the bottomless, well of federal subsidies for drugs, drug prescriptions, medical care, and college tuition has caused all 3 of those things to outpace real inflation. And basically, if you can bill all the medical care all the drugs, all the tuition. Like you could just keep raising the prices, and the federal government, up until it seems like Trump, like there has not been any pushback. And so Jon Stewart said pretty much what Thomas Sowell and Milton Friedman have been saying forever is that, when you subsidize something, you're going to get a lot more of it.
Yeah,
it's just the nature of it.
Bought and paid for.
If you say, I'm going to buy your groceries, Norm, if you say, hey, I'm hungry and I can't afford groceries, if you just say that, and that's good enough to give you $100 a week to go buy groceries,
more people
you're going to get more people to say that.
Yeah. Right.
And that's not making them evil or anything. That's human nature.
That is capitalism.
That's capitalism.
Mm-hmm. Right.
People will seek human out nature. Those advantages. My bad is that with the peace attempt between Hamas and Israel, that Hamas seems to be breaking its word in the ceasefire. And I think some of it, and I'm glad Israel has held off of a full-scale response, but Hamas shooters killed 2 Israeli soldiers this week. And, I'm sure Netanyahu's impulse was to just, okay, we're going to start the war all over again. Like, ceasefire's off. They responded in what I would say in some kind of scaled way with some targeted things. And the Hamas leadership is saying, we're not in full control of our people. Like we at the Hamas negotiators are basically saying that some of our people don't even know there is a ceasefire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like it's
like so, the Japanese on Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
the infrastructure.
Civil War.
Yeah.
The Civil War, the same thing happened. Yeah,
so that's bad, but I'm hoping Israel continues to try to be to try to have the big picture. If we can actually settle this war and get Hamas out of power and actually disarm them and let the Palestinians run Gaza, oh my God, what a great thing that would be. Mm-hmm. And I hope Israel continues to show some, proportionality.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My good and bad, very similar to that. My good was that it's, the peace, we're seeing it, but the bad going, dang it, still fighting. It's still not there. So it's kind of a mixed bag on that. But yeah, I'm right on that as well. Yeah.
Yep. So I only have a good thing today. And it's sort of I like to make this personal sometimes. I'm building a house. And we all say that there's not enough craftsmen, not enough, but look, I showed up. I'm doing a lot of the tile work myself, believe it or not. I'm a fool that way, I suppose. But I tend to get up early at 3 or 4 in the morning and go and do that kind of stuff, and then hit the office or on the weekends for sure. But I was there on Friday morning, Monday morning early, and I pulled up to my house in the woods that's under construction, and there was some dude there who was doing exterior trim with lights on. Like he brought his own lights, his spotlights, and his music going, and his saw cooking, and he just bebopping around doing work. And I was like, "Holy crap! I'm the homeowner, man. Nice to meet you." And his craftsmanship was perfection, by the way. And he goes, "Yeah, I get up at 1 a.m. and I get to work. I get my work done." And he goes, "I go to bed early, but people don't understand me." But I said, "I get you. You're working your ass off, my man. Here's to you, a hat tip to that." Yeah. So that we still have people that work. We still have people that do good, that are craftsmen, that still care about what they do and take pride in what they do in a good way. I mean that in a good way.
Yeah.
And so that's my good for the week. I don't have a bad for the week because we've mentioned all the bad stuff already.
We have covered a lot of bad.
So that is Common Sense Ohio. Check us out, commonsenseohioshow.com. We are coming at you each and every week right from the middle.